Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody who's here today. So I've been with Greenvale since September, and my background is copper, gold, and other base metal exploration and resource development. And I'm very pleased to be here today to have the opportunity to talk to you about Greenvale's two exciting projects. Next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. Yeah, so Greenvale's got a fairly simple capital structure, 397 million shares on issue, $135 million market cap with 7.8 million in the bank. The top 20 shareholders hold 48% of the company, and 3 directors, as the 3 largest shareholders, have a combined 24%. The board has a proven track record in discovery and development of ore deposits and creating value for shareholders. Our chairman, Tony and managing director, Neil Biddle, they were founding directors of Pilbara Minerals and took that company from a few $million market cap explorer to a multi-billion dollar company, and what is now Australia's first lithium producer. We've also recently appointed to the board was Executive Director Mark Turner. Mark is an experienced engineer and project director with over 20 years of experience in oil and gas, water, power and renewables projects. Mark will be also the GM of the Alpha project, and we'll oversee advancement of that Torbanite project. Next slide. So Alpha is a unique deposit. It's formed from a high-yielding hydrocarbon-rich rock called Torbanite, and has potential to produce multiple products with a carbon offsetting commercialisation strategy and a maiden mineral resource estimate, which is not far off. Our vision for Alpha is to be Australia's only domestic source of bitumen products. And it's located about 500 kilometres west of the central Queensland town of Rockhampton, 50 k's south of the township of Alpha, discovered in the late 1930s. And so it's had a fair bit of historical work over the deposit, and that's comprised of drilling and testing for retorting test work to produce bitumen type products and activated carbon test work. Torbanite forms, it's like it's an unusual rock. It's not something you hear commonly. It's very rich. It forms in a sedimentary environment, a freshwater sedimentary environment, and it forms from algae. And that makes it quite special in the sense that it has a very high yield. Up to 698 litres of oil can be produced from 1 tonne of Torbanite. And so basically to get this oil out, you heat it. So when it's heated, it progressively releases different hydrocarbons that are of economic interest. So you get gases, volatiles and oil. And the oil contains the hydrocarbons that may make up bitumen products. Now, there was a lot of historical work, as I've mentioned. However, most of that work predates the JORC code. So we've had to go back and drill the deposit. It was drilled in 2021, and final assay results from that program have been returned to our consultants in January. And so the maiden mineral resource estimate for the deposit is now well underway. Next slide. So about September last year, we put out an updated commercialisation pathway for Alpha. The strategy includes production of bitumen, liquid fuels and synthetic carbon products, as had been previously announced, but with the addition of sulfuric acid, which would be a byproduct of cleaning up removing the sulfur from the liquid fuels, and importantly, a green power generation model. This would align the project with emissions best practice and would include a solar and gas-fired hybrid power station feeding back into the local grid. So, as I mentioned, Torbanite is processed using heat. It's in a retort, and it's basically a big oven, just in the absence of air. And the envisaged hybrid gas and solar power station, it represents an elegant solution to the use of the gases and the volatiles that come off that may otherwise be considered waste products. and those would be run through the turbine to generate electricity, and waste heat used to continue feeding the retort. So the intent of the solar farm is to offset carbon emissions associated with the project, and this would align it with Queensland's renewable power targets and recent commitment to net zero emissions by 2050. Next slide. So, as I mentioned earlier, the vision for Alpha is to become Australia's sole domestic source of bitumen products, and it's the main product to be expected from Alpha, with up to 15% of the Torbanite refined into bitumen products based on historical test work and our own CITA test work using the Greenvale retort. So Australia currently imports 100% of its bitumen. Most of this comes from Southeast Asia and China, with the rest from other parts of the world. And that's derived, it's what's left over from processing heavy crude oil. Around about 1 million tonne per annum in terms of a domestic market, but demand is forecast to increase robustly, and that's on the back of increased infrastructure spending as a response to the COVID pandemic. More locally here in Queensland, infrastructure projects have been brought forward as a function of the successful 2032 Olympics bid, and we've had more recently some additional federal funding announced for the upgrading of rural roads. So we've had some strong interest from local asphalt manufacturers, and we're confident that long-term supply agreements can be secured. Next slide. So next steps for Alpha. Well, we need to complete the maiden mineral resource estimate, and that's well underway. And beyond that, it's really progressing some of the feasibility type activities. So Greenvale we have our own retort apparatus, which is designed to not only get the yield from a larger sample of drill core, but also to divide up that yield of oil into various products. So we need to finalise that systematic retorting method, and then start analysing the drill core. We're looking at processing plant, land suitability assessments, and in terms of advancing approvals, we're going to get our wet season ecological surveys underway at some stage in the next month, hopefully. Next slide. So the second project that Greenvale has is the Georgina Basin IOCG project. It's located in a frontier province, the Northern Territory, that is prospective for world-class iron oxide copper gold deposits. Greenvale is an early mover in this region, and we're one of the few first explorers to get drilling on the ground. With numerous tenement exploration targets on an expansive tenement holding, Greenvale is well placed to make the first discovery in the highly prospective East Tennant region. So there's our tenement holding there in the image. 7 granted tenements, 4 under application, and for about a total of 4,500 square kilometres. Georgina is located between Tennant Creek and Mount Isa, and both of these regions, Tennant Creek and Mount Isa, have IOCG deposits at surface, and the Georgina region is covered by the Georgina Basin. So it has prospective basement rocks that have been underexplored to date. Now, iron oxide copper gold deposits are economically attractive deposits. Australia has several world-class deposits, including Prominent Hill, Olympic Dam, Carrapateena, and in northwest Queensland, an example is Berners Henry. So they are dense and iron-rich deposits, and they're associated with magnetic anomalies. And because of that, most of them have been discovered on the back of regional magnetic and gravity surveys. So that's how Greenvale kicked off the exploration program at Georgina, with magnetic and gravity surveys. Next slide. And so over 90 targets were identified following these surveys, and 2 of the higher priority ones were titled Twin Peaks. And these are what you would consider a classic IOCG bullseye magnetic and gravity targets, and situated between 2 interpreted regional faults. We set out to test these targets late last year. Got a drill rig on the ground in November, and we managed to put one hole in each target. Next slide, please. So this is just a diagram of hole KNR DD2. It's targeted the western of the two Twin Peaks anomalies. You can see it goes right into the thick of that magnetic anomaly there. This hole intersected metasedimentary rocks and breccias, and these are consistent with the same kind of rocks that we see at Tenney Creek and Mount Isa, and the Mount Isa region that host IOCG deposits. The alteration, you can strong hematite alteration, chlorite and cerussite in some places, and this alteration mineralogy is the same sort of thing you see with IOCG deposits associated with the Tenney Creek region. So very encouraging. In fact, it's so encouraging that we extended the hole beyond its design depth at about 700. We pushed it right through to just under 800 meters. And that photo there at the bottom is just a photo of some of our drill core, some of the hematite altered breccia. The team's very excited about this, has all the right ingredients to be related to an IOCG system, and our assays are eagerly awaited to confirm this case. Next slide, please. So our central tenement area also has three highly prospective, highly ranked targets that we're looking to drill test, the next in the pipeline. And these, like the Twin Peaks targets, were identified off the back of high resolution gravity and magnetic surveying. That data has been inverted to produce 3D models, and we now have coincident magnetic and gravity anomalies named the Mawson, Banks and Leichhardt prospects, and a 9-hole program has been designed to systematically evaluate these targets, and we're looking to do that in the second quarter. Next slide, please. So Georgina, our next steps at Twin Peaks. Well, like I said, we're eagerly awaiting our assays. On top of that, we've got some density and some magnetic susceptibility measurements coming in from the samples that we've taken from those holes. And we're looking to get a downhole geophysical survey conducted imminently. And that's to really evaluate whether the magnetic anomaly has been fully tested. We'll get all of that data back together. We'll revise our interpretation and design follow-up drilling. At our central tenement group, it's really all about advancing the approvals to get the right to get onto the ground and conduct that drilling in the second quarter. And in our eastern tenement group, which you see to the far right of the screen and in the blue box, that's we're looking at formal prospectivity review. On top of being prospective for iron oxide copper gold deposits, that tenement group also has prospectivity for sediment hosted base metal deposits, unlike that, and is part of the same rock group that hosts the Century deposits to the northeast. Next slide. Here at Greenvale, and runs on the board. Two excellent projects. The Alpha Torbanite project is a unique high-yielding deposit, has potential for multiple marketable products. We've got a strategic, energy-efficient and carbon offset commercialisation pathway and a mineral resource estimate underway. At Georgina, we've got a substantial tenement package and a new IOCG frontier. Cemented our first mover status as one of the first explorers to get drilling on the ground, with 2 holes complete and intersecting prospective host rocks and the right kind of alteration that we like to see. And we have further prospects in the pipeline for drill testing in the second quarter.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Oh, you got one more slide to go. I think that might be it.
All right.
Thank you. We've got quite a few questions. Probably a technical one from one of our analysts. He's saying shale retort trials were abandoned partly due to emissions and odours near Gladstone. What can you do differently to ensure permitting? Yeah, look, we've actually done a fair bit of touched on there. CITA retorting test works. We've got our own retort that we've built. It's not. It is a unique deposit, and that means that there's not lots of labs out there that can do. They're not
it's not a standard method that's offered by a lot of labs. So we've built this retort to do our own test work, and we've been working our way through some cyto testing to establish a systematic method for testing out before we start testing on our drill core. Now, some of that analysis has involved whether those the oil that comes off the retort, whether that contains some of the compounds that, referring to the question, it's toluenes and benzenes, which were the issue with the environmental issue with that in the Gladstone situation. Now, based on our test work to date, those haven't been identified. So we view that in a very encouraging way.
Now, it's hard to believe that Australia imports 100% of its bitumen. That said, it's obviously coming from Asia. Can you compete with Asian pricing? Have you modelled that out? Given I don't think they would have the kind of clean aspects that Greenvale would.
Yeah, look, that's a good question. Look, that bitumen is hot pumped at between 120 and 150 degrees, and it comes from halfway around the world. We're very confident that we can produce something locally that won't have that kind of energy consumption requirement to bring it to market. And we think that's what will give us an edge. Understood.
And you've got two kind of very different businesses. Has there been any discussion around spinning one out or spinning the other?
Yeah, look, another fair question. Look, I think the team's grown, and we've got the right kind of expertise to tackle both of these projects now. And that's our focus. We really are focused on delivering against both of these projects. We are going to ramp up at Georgina, and that's going to be my focus. And look, things will be heating up as well for Alpha. We're going to get the mineral resource estimate out. We'll be kicking off those environmental studies to progress the approval side of things, and then develop the feasibility. And that's where Mark Turner's come on board to really spearhead that process. So really, for us, it's all about delivering against that project at the moment.
And finally, one last question here. Can you talk about funding for these prospects?
Yeah, look, we've got funding for the foreseeable future. We've got about $3 million worth of exploration proposed for Georgina for the coming year, and we can see out all our approvals side of things for Alpha, and the systematic test work of the drill core